Up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Matty McCurdy program. Today, another solo episode. And once again, these primarily go over the topics I share on my weekly email, which comes out every single Monday in the morning. So it takes usually 5 minutes to read. And they're just thoughts and ideas that I've either had conversations with people about throughout my week or things that I'm learning and studying and looking up. And it's a great little community. We have 500 plus people on it, and it's growing, and would love to see you there. So if you want to read more, I'll link the I'll put the link down in the description so you guys can check it out and hopefully join along and participate in the weekly Monday email. But today I want to talk about confidence and how to have confidence, how to gain confidence, how to control your emotional state so that you can have all the confidence you need to really thrive in life. And I think that's something that people struggle with. They genuinely want to have confidence. They genuinely want to control how they feel inside internally so that they can have a positive direction in their life. And I think for a lot of people, it's very difficult because they feel as if they cannot control the surrounding circumstances that are making them feel the way they feel. But that's where I think it really starts is do your circumstances really control your emotional state? That's really the first question that you have to ask yourself. The answer to me is no. Your circumstances do not control your emotional state. And I think that's where most people first get stuck is they are stuck on the idea that life controls them, that their external circumstances, environment is controlling the way they feel. And while I am a big believer that your surrounding environment is going to play a big part in who you are and how you develop, I also firmly believe that you can control anything you choose to take accountability for. Let me repeat that. You can control anything you choose to take accountability for. And so if you choose to give away your accountability, your agency to your external surroundings, to somebody else, you'll never be able to take control of your life, and your emotional state will be dictated by your external surroundings and everything around you. But if you choose to take accountability for what is going on around you at the level you can, you now have the power to change the trajectory of your life and move it in a positive direction. Let me give you an example. When we're driving down the road, and I think everyone can relate to this. We've all had bad experiences while driving, whether that was somebody cutting us off, whether that was an accident that took place, whether that's just a traffic jam. We've all been there. We've all had bad experiences. I want to give you a story. I had three friends in my car with me, and I was driving down the road. And it wasn't me driving. I was in the passenger seat. My friend was driving, and then my other friend was in the back. And as we were driving down the road, a car next to us, it was like a big red truck, was driving down the road next to us, and all of a sudden sped up and swerved right in front of us. And it was just one of those very common situations where you get frustrated and somebody does something kind of dumb to you while you're driving down the road. And instantly, my friend driving, he got super frustrated, laid down on the horn, rolled down the window, expressed himself with some language that I won't repeat here, but just was super angry and frustrated. My friend in the back, he was also really frustrated as well. However, I would say he was a little more in between, right? He was frustrated, but not necessarily rolling down the window, laying down on the horn. And maybe, granted, he didn't have a horn to lay down on, but he was definitely worked up, but not to the same extent. Me, on the other hand, I was frustrated. I definitely was annoyed by it, but I was calm for the most part, not necessarily as worked up as my two friends were. And I asked myself, we just all three went through the exact same experience. However, my friend driving the car, who was at explosive levels of frustration, letting the people all around him know. We had my other friend who was level headed at some point, but still frustrated. And then me, who was not worked up nearly as much. And as I thought about it and wondered why did we all experience the same thing, but have a different emotional response to it? What was causing that? And I asked my friend who was driving, I asked him, I said, why? That was kind of scary. I tried not make him feel bad, but what was the reasoning there? Why were you so worked up? And he said, this idiot driving down the road, he needed to know that I was here, and he needed to know that that was not okay. That's why I laid down the horn, because there's other people out here on the road. And if I don't let him know that what he did was wrong, he's going to do it to somebody else. I said, okay, that makes sense. My friend in the back, I then asked him the same question. He said, I didn't like it. And I was more nervous and frustrated by what I saw, and it pulled a reaction out of me. And I thought to myself, where for me, I went, it's scary, it's frustrating, but I've been in this situation before. And truth be told, is it's not worth my time necessarily to get worked up and let him win by getting me frustrated. And so it's really interesting to hear all these different perspectives and why each of us gave the emotional response we did, even though it was very different. One explosively angry, one just kind of middle of the road, and me being not nearly as worked up. And it all stemmed from the fact that we had a different understanding of what that frustration, that emotional state gave away, right? My friend who's driving, he felt that showing that level of emotion was a sign of strength, showing the people on the road and the guy driving that he was not going to be cut off. What he was doing was wrong. My friend behind me came more from a place of nervous reaction, and me, kind of the opposite, feeling as if me getting frustrated and worked up was actually letting the person driving who would cut us off win, in essence, and get the best of me. And so, my point being of the story is that you can really dictate your emotions based off your circumstances and how you're feeling. And it all comes down to how you perceive a situation and how you condition yourself, how you train yourself to respond. And so if you've only ever seen people get frustrated when somebody's driving down the road and cuts you off, you're probably going to respond likewise because that's what you know, that's what you understand, and that's what you've probably done time and time again when that has occurred. And it all comes down to choosing. But first, you have to accept that you have the ability to control how you feel, and you have the ability to control where you take those emotions. So, why is this important? And I'll share another experience of something personally I do to help control my emotions. Why is this important? Well, when you are in a bad emotional state, when you are not confident, when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you don't believe in your abilities, how likely are you to succeed at what you're doing? You're not, right? You're probably not going to succeed because you are not in a positive emotional place to make good choices and confident choices that are going to lead you down a path that is positive, right? When you are confident, when you're in your best self, that's when you're going to make the best choices. That's when you're going to make the best progress. That's when you're going to make and get the best results. And so, if you want to be a successful achiever in your life, you want to live as much as possible in that positive, confident, best version of yourself emotionally as you can. The challenging part is that we don't live in a perfect world. We have a lot of individuals around us that affect us differently. We don't necessarily live in the perfect circumstances. And life is going to have its challenges, its ups and downs. So the question is, how do we take responsibility and control of it? You see this a lot where people blame their circumstances for what is going on to them. They blame their parents, they blame the house they're living in, they blame their job. And the reality is that they have emotional and mental limitations they've placed on themselves for why they haven't accomplished what they really want. Maybe they're scared to fail. Maybe they're overwhelmed by life. Maybe they've had some experiences where they did try, they took the risk and it didn't work out how they wanted. And so they're hurt emotionally. And so they've built a story and a narrative around why they aren't at fault, why the world, why their circumstances have created who they are today. And those stories that we tell ourselves, that story that individual is telling themselves is what's holding them back from actually achieving what they want in life and actually helping them achieve and go past those limiting beliefs to accomplish their goals. And so if we can take back control of the reins, if we can eliminate those stories and realize that no, life does not live me, I live my life, then we can now take back control and realize and put ourselves back in that positive, confident, emotional place and state that will lead to success and will help us push past the struggles of life that are bound to come so that we can move forward. So I'm going to give you another example, a simple example that has helped me a lot in helping control my emotions and recondition myself to be in a positive and confident state of mind anytime I try to do something. I'm going to use public speaking as the example because I think that's something everybody can relate to. We've all been in situations where we've had to speak in public and we've had to talk, and maybe we were nervous and we feel those emotions that are associated with nerves. And whether you're a public speaker, whether you're a singer or performer, whether it's just going up and talking to somebody you're interested in, a girl, a boy, whatever it may be, this is, I think, applicable. So growing up, I was very shy. I was a very shy individual. I didn't know how to make friends very well. I didn't know how to talk to other people. And I often felt that I needed to have a reason to go speak to other people. I need to have a purpose behind my conversation. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people feel that. And so I I wanted to learn how to be better at that, how to learn how to push myself past those nerves and the anxious emotions I was attaching to this task of speaking to people. And every time I tried to speak to people, I would get the common side effects, right? The nerves, the sweaty palms, the dry mouth, the heart racing, the sweating, all those type of common side effects that we associate with anything that we're uncomfortable doing. And I really wanted to figure out how to push past this. And so I developed this routine, this practice, one might say, this ritual that would do every time I would have to go perform. I'd end up doing, as I got older and older, I ended up doing a lot of performance, whether that was musical theater, whether that was public speaking, debate, all sorts of variety of things. The podcast, a prime example where I had to reach out to people, but then also speak to them one on one. And so, how did I overcome this fear, these emotions? Because when I've talked to multiple people, some people could have the same exact interactions, the same exact side effects of the nerves, but one person could go and do it very well and perform great, and the other person would be crippled by it, saying that they have anxiety. And so my ritual that I came up with was 3 steps. The first one, and preferably in front of the mirror, was to repeat in my head that I am great, I'm successful, I can achieve, I can do this, and really just start to emphasize positive thought processes and positive statements that helped rewire my brain, that not to think that I couldn't do it, not to think that it was impossible, not to be scared of it, but to realize that I had everything I needed to accomplish this goal. And naturally, you want to be prepared. So if you're performing, if you're in a show, if you're public speaking, whatever it is, if you haven't done the work, if you haven't rehearsed, if you don't have what you're going to say in mind, that's probably why you're nervous, because you haven't put in the effort. But if you've done the work, right? Now you just need to overcome the fear and re-establish the emotion in a positive direction so that you can go and perform at your best level and be confident. And so after preparation, I would repeat to myself, I'm great. This is awesome. I'm so excited for this. And rewire and start talking in a way that really helped me mentally change the way I thought about what I was about to do. Because what do we normally think when we're scared and nervous? Oh, there's no way I'm going to do this. This is impossible. I can't believe I signed up for this. This is so bad. This is so bad. This is so bad. And why on earth would we ever succeed if those are the thoughts that are in our mind as we're trying to prepare for what we're doing? No wonder we're nervous. No wonder we're scared. No wonder we don't feel ready, because we're telling ourselves that we're not ready. We're telling ourselves we're going to fail. And if you tell yourself you're going to fail, your brain's going to believe you're going to fail. And if you believe you're going to fail, you're going to fail. And so the first step was rewiring, retraining myself to think in a positive direction and refix the inner talk and the self-talk that was going on in my head. So that's step one. Reframe, reestablish the positive self-talk. Step two is I would look in a mirror, preferably, so I could see my own reflection, and I would smile as big as I could, letting it really grow from just kind of down to a big smile. And I would hold that grin while I'm repeating these phrases. I'm great. I'm achieving. I am successful. And I would hold that smile as big as I could get, right? And I would hold that there the whole time as I repeat this. This is a cycle, probably 2 to 3 minutes. And as I would repeat that, that big smile on my face, I would also try to hold a positive stance, physical stance, whether that was standing up straight, whether that was sitting up in my chair, hands on the hips, whatever it may be, holding and really bringing my frame out in an external format to open up my physical presence as well. So why are these 3 things so important? Well, let me share. The first one is the positive inner self-talk. We've already talked about that. If you're telling yourself it's going to fail, your brain's going to believe it's going to fail. So reframing and fixing your talk, your inner self-talk, that's the first step. It's really the most powerful, in my opinion, because it's retrained your brain to think in a positive light. The second, what do you think of when you're nervous, scared? What type of presence are you taking on? I think of a horror movie. When there's a scary scene, when someone's timid and scared and there's a monster coming after them, are they standing up straight and tall? And no, they're not. They're crouched down. They're not smiling. They're in a very negative and closed off type of space physically. And so fixing it and smiling, bringing your presence up and outward, it's retrain your brain to start associating your physical state, the way you're standing, the way you're holding your frame, that this activity, this thing you're about to go do, whether you're talking to a potential girlfriend, boyfriend, whether you're just having a business meeting, whatever it is, you're now changing your physicality for your brain to associate that with this is a positive and a confident interaction. I am confident in this that I'm about to go do because your brain knows the physicality of what you're doing, right? If you're crouched down and closed off, your brain is going to think, oh, this is something where I'm closed off. I need to not show off I'm nervous. I'm scared. It's going to associate those emotions to the activity you're doing. But if you have an activity that you originally or initially were nervous for, and you start to associate the physical patterns of confidence and the mental and self-talk of confidence, you are now going to start associating that emotion to whatever you're doing. And over time, as you continuously do this, your brain is going to automatically snap into a confident state of mind when it goes and does this activity because it no longer associates those negative and those nervous and anxious emotions to what you're doing. And so really training yourself and conditioning, just like if you're going to go to the gym or do any activity, the more you interact with it in a positive way and the more reps you get, the easier it is to snap into that behavior. And so I would challenge you as you go about any activity in your day-to-day life, whether that is public speaking or talking to somebody, and this works great for relationships too. You know, when you're nervous to go approach somebody, really take on those confident steps because then you're going to act and behave in a confident way. Nobody wants to be around someone who seems shut off and lacks the confidence. They want to be around that positive and confident individual. And so I would challenge you when you have something that you're working towards, first step, accept that you have the ability to change your emotions and change the way you interact with the world. If you constantly believe or you are a believer that the world is the reason you interact with it or the world is affecting you and you have nothing to say and you can't change your outcomes, this will never work because you already have set yourself up for failure when you believe you have no place to make the change. Once you take accountability, you have the power to change who you are. You have the power to control your destiny. You have the power to control how you interact with the world, and you have the power to achieve and become the person you want to be. So that's step one. Accept accountability. Even when you don't necessarily own all the fault, accept it as best you can. Step two, change your self-talk. Really convince yourself and rewire the brain to respond and talk positively towards whatever you're working towards. If you believe it, everything else will line up. If you believe it, your brain will believe it. And step three, start associating physically the triggers and the traits that go with confidence and the positive emotions you want to establish or portray towards whatever you're doing, whatever you're working towards. You know, I love the story of Christian Bale in he's in American Psycho, the Dark Knight trilogy as Batman. And he was known to be able to actually control his emotional state so well where I think it was in American Psycho, he could actually sweat on cue by controlling the emotional state that he was in mentally in his brain. And it would actually create a physical, response, which was the sweating. And he was so good at controlling his emotions and the thoughts and ideas and the portrayal of what he was trying to get across that it would translate into being able to sweat on cue in this physical manifestation of what he was believing. And so you have so much power in your brain to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. You just have to believe it. You have to trust that you can do it and then empower yourself to do so. And I promise, whatever you're working towards, it will become easier if you have the confidence to do so. And if you condition yourself emotionally to achieve the goals you have. That's the best advice I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you have the power to achieve if you believe in what you're doing. Thanks, guys.